Hey guys, I'm going to solve this try it problem from chapter 23. It's a variable overhead cost variance and variable overhead efficiency variance problem. This problem was on the third exam and we're likely to encounter it again on the final. And I thought it would be worth looking at a little bit deeper because this is one of the more tricky problems on the third exam. And one of the major things that I noticed on the third exam was that was a lot of distractor values. So he gave us many numbers for any particular problem in order to solve for a particular question, but you didn't need to use all of the numbers to solve the question. So it was very easy to get confused. Which numbers do I put where? So I'm going to solve this problem, and as I solve it, I'm going to emphasize how to get rid of these distractor values and just pick out the values that you need. So one way for this problem to get rid of the distractors is to first label what you're looking for. So the question says variable overhead cost variance, variable overhead efficiency variance, total variable overhead variance. So these first three questions, which are the ones that I'm going to solve, are all talking about variable overhead cost variance. And then the last three talk about fixed overhead. So right away, I would look at these values and I see variable here, and then I see actual direct labor, then I see variable overhead here. This says fixed overhead, fixed overhead, fixed overhead. So right away, I would probably mark with my pencil an X through these three, next to these three values, in order to remind myself that I'm only looking, right now, I'm only looking at the variable overhead cost variance. So I'm just going to write variable overhead there, and try to imagine that those three have little X's by them or crossed out or something, because we're probably not going to need those for these first three questions. And you might remember, in order to solve these variable overhead amounts, you need to have AC, SC, AQ, and SQ. And the way I remember that, and it's kind of silly, but these kind of mnemonic devices or memory tricks, the sillier they are, typically the better they work. So I say you need AC when you go to SC. You need air conditioning when you go to South Carolina. And for the AQ SQ sequence, Aquaman beats Sasquatch. And one good thing about this silly little memory device is that it's in the correct sequence. AC minus SC times AQ, and then the second one goes AQ minus SC. I mean AQ minus SQ times, and you go back up here and multiply times SC. So if you remember in that sequence, then you won't have any problems with your algebraic formulas. So now let's go ahead and solve for these values. So the first thing I would do is look here. It says variable overhead cost standard cost. So we automatically have one of the values given to us, and that's 50 cents. And when you have a lot of distractors and a lot of values you're working with, it's very important to put the symbol and the unit on your value. So this is a dollar value, and it's per direct labor hour. Per direct labor hour. So what we know, whenever you see a per, that means divided by. So that means in order to get this 50 cents, we took a dollar amount and we divided it by a direct labor hour amount in order to get that 50 cents. So in order to get this AC, we're going to have to do exactly the same thing. Well, the great thing is they already gave us a bunch of big hints. We know they took a dollar amount, they divided by a direct labor hour amount, and we know it's going to have to be close to 50 cents. So let's go ahead and look through the values and see if we can find a dollar amount. Well, right here there's 50 cents that we used already, and so that's not going to work. But another reason it can't work is because it already has its per direct labor hours on it. So if we divided per direct labor hours by another direct labor hours, we would have per direct labor hours, and that's incorrect. So that doesn't make any sense. So that's not it. This is, we're looking for a dollar amount. Remember, this is not a dollar amount. It already has its per shirts on it. Per shirts divided by direct labor hours would be direct labor hours per shirt divided by direct labor hours, and that doesn't make any sense. So that's not it. This, we're looking for a dollar amount. This is not a dollar amount. This is a direct labor hours amount, so that's not it. So the only thing that we're left, because remember these are all X'd out in your mind, we're not using that. This is the only dollar amount left, so that's probably it. So 15.12. And I would put the dollar amount here, but I'm going to have to use Excel to divide, and it won't divide if I put that in there. So I'm just going to leave it for now as 15.12, and we need to divide by a direct labor hour. So let's go through here and look for direct labor hour. Well, look here. Here's a direct labor hour right here, but it has 50 cent. It already has a dollar on it, so we can't use that value because it's already in the wrong format. This is not a direct labor amount. It's a direct labor amount per shirt. So that's not it. Well, here's a direct labor hour amount right there, direct labor hours. So we can go ahead and use that. Divided by 25.20. And we get 60 cents per direct labor hour. And so right there, we can feel pretty confident. We checked it about 3 different ways that these numbers are right. They're similar in value. They have the right. They're both dollar amounts divided by direct labor amounts. So that means those values are probably correct. So let's go ahead and do the same thing for the actual quantity. So actual quantity is asking for a quantity. It's not a quantity divided by something. It's not a quantity. It's not a dollar amount divided by something. It's just a quantity. So let's go through here and look for quantities. That's 50 cents per direct labor hour. That's not just a quantity. That's a dollar amount with something else. So that's not it. 2 direct labor hours per shirt. That's direct labor hours and shirts. So that's not it. It's got 2 things in it. This is a direct labor hours. It's just one thing. It's a quantity. That's probably what we're looking for, so I'm going to put that in there. That's 2,520 direct labor hours. Okay, so that's probably it. And this right here is a dollar amount, so we know that's not it. So it has to be this amount here. So now let's calculate the standard quantity. So the standard quantity, we don't know based on looking at these values. We know it has to be also a direct labor hour amount because we have to compare direct labor hours to direct labor hours. So we can put that in there. So direct labor hours, you look here, and this says 50 cents per direct labor hour. So that's not it. This is 2 direct labor hours per shirt. So that's direct labor hours in it, but it has per shirts. So that maybe not. I don't know. This has direct labor hours in it. So there's 3 things with direct labor hours in it, and I would probably be a little bit confused. So what I would do over here is I would go back and say I'm looking for standard quantity. So which one of these says standard quantity? This says variable overhead cost standard. That's not standard quantity. Direct labor efficiency standard. That's not standard quantity. Actual amount of direct labor hours. That's not standard quantity. Actual cost of variable overhead. That's not standard quantity. But the only thing that says standard in it are these 2 right here. That's cost standard and that's efficiency standard. So I've already used this cost standard right here, so that's probably not what I'm looking for. So the only thing I'm really left with is this efficiency standard right here. So I would say, well, it says $2, right? But $2 and 2,520 don't make any sense. That doesn't match up. So, but this does give us a little hint. It says $2 direct labor hours per shirt. Well, right up here, we would say, oh, okay, this 12 per shirt. Well, it says Tipton made 1,200 shirts. So that means if it's $2 per shirt and we made 1,200 shirts, now it's starting to make sense. We can multiply those two together to get our standard quantity. And that's 2,400, and it matches up closely with the 2,520, and so now I would feel a lot more comfortable about that value, and it's direct labor hours. So now you might ask, well, why didn't we use this 1,400? Now that would be something that you would just have to know not to use budgeted, and that's a distractor. You would just have to know it's a distractor. There's nothing telling you not to use it. You could have accidentally chose to use 1,400 and that value would have been wrong, but you just need to know that there are distractors and not use that. So now that we have these values, we feel pretty comfortable. We checked them in multiple different ways. We matched up the numbers. We matched up the dollars. We matched up the labels. And so now all we have to do is remember our formulas and then multiply, and we should get our correct answer. So we'll go back to number 13. It says variable overhead cost standard, variable overhead cost variance, equals AC minus SC times AQ. So that equals AC, oh wait, I have to put the parentheses, AC minus SC times AQ. And I have to a little bit bigger so you can see it, $252. Another encouraging sign is that is a whole number, and it doesn't repeat. It's not like 252.3798446. So a lot of times when you're working with units like this, it will sum out to a fixed dollar amount. So that's encouraging also. Another minor sign. Maybe that's a hint, but not always. Sometimes it is a weird value, but a lot of times not. And so now all we have to do is check and see if this is a favorable or an unfavorable amount. And our actual cost here, AC, was 60. Our standard cost was 50. Our actual was more, so that's unfavorable. Okay. So now let's calculate our 14 variable overhead efficiency variance. Variable overhead efficiency variance equals AQ minus SQ times SC. Okay, that equals parentheses AQ minus SQ times SC, and that's $60. And our actual quantity here, actual quantity here was higher than our standard quantity, so that means it is unfavorable. And for the final value, they want to know total variable overhead variance. Total variable overhead variance, and that just equals the sum of those two values. So that equals this plus this, and since they're both unfavorable, then you know that this must be unfavorable. Okay, And so there's the solution, and I previously solved this problem, and I just want to check and make sure I'm giving you the correct values. Well, I must have deleted them, but in any case, I know they're correct because I've looked at the same values before I solved this problem. So I hope this little video gives you another strategy to eliminate some of the distractor elements that he gave us on test 3. These strategies work not only for this kind of problem, but it also works for almost every problem that you solve. If you just pay close attention to the numbers, make sure you label your numbers and put the values on them, and that will give you really big clues as to which numbers to plug into your final formulas in order to get your answers. So I hope this helped, guys, and good luck on your test.